And then if we zoom in a little bit on what the release process like actually looks like day to day, if you're somebody that's looking to get an app update out the door, there's a lot of moving pieces and a lot of tools that you have to be familiar with and that you have to be pretty agile moving across and understanding in order to just do something simple like get a release out. And so let's break down what, some examples of that are. So on the code side of things, if you're an engineer, we're talking, of course, about version control, GitHub, your Bitbucket. This is where you're looking at your code, you're committing your code in, you're maybe cutting release branches, maybe cherry picking in some fixes for a release, making sure your PRs are all in there, everything's approved and merged. So obviously you're going to be pretty familiar with that. Then there's the project management side of things. So this tends to be more of the domain of the product side of the org, but engineers are definitely part of that as well. And so there's the responsibility of going in there and making sure that your features are getting moved across in terms of status when they get released, that they're getting their correct fix version attached so that product managers can have an accurate understanding of what's going out with a given release. So that's the project management side of things. So your Jira's, your Asana, your Linear. And then we move into the CI/CD tooling. So most teams have some kind of basic build system in place. So this is the tools like your Circle CI, your GitHub Actions, your Bitrise you're using to compile your builds and upload it for distribution, whether that be beta distribution or like actual App Store distribution. And so in the best cases for CI/CD, you're going in there and maybe you're clicking a button to start the build, and then you can come back and check on it every once in a while. Worst case scenario, something breaks in your build and you're going in there and you're having to like dig through a bunch of garbled logs, and it's no fun. And especially if you're not familiar with those tools, it can be extremely intimidating to come in there and be like, oh, like the build just failed. Now what am I supposed to do? Then how do I figure out what went wrong? So that's build system. And then, of course, we have our app stores, App Store Connect, infamously clunky and frustrating and hair pulling kind of experience with App Store Connect's gone better in recent years. But yeah, it still has its quirks on the Play console side of things. Definitely some nuance to know there as well. And again, for folks that are maybe not as familiar with these tools, like every time that you're coming in to do a release, having to reacquaint yourself with how things work, with everything that you have to do, and with changes in the platform itself. Like there's often things that are popping into your face, like new alerts that you weren't aware of. It just adds all of this kind of overhead that you have to be familiar with and you have to be equipped to handle. And let's not forget stability monitoring. And so our tools like Instabug, Sentry, Crashlytics, Firebase Crashlytics, super important for monitoring the health of your release as it goes out, also during the beta stages or sort of testing stages of the process. But yeah, for that, you have to know what to look for as well. And so it requires that there's some pre-existing established framework for understanding the health of a release when you're trying to study it. So I just covered, I think, 5 different tools that are pretty critical for any release process that you're running. And this is just like a taste, this is like a toe in the water. There's actually so many more tools that, depending on what your team is doing, come into play. So things I'm just going to throw out there, like translation tools. If your team is doing localizable strings and translating your app to different languages, you're going to have to go in there and be familiar with that, with exports and whatnot. Things like regression testing tools like TestRail and X-Ray. So if you're using that, comes into play as well. Product analytics, things like Amplitude, Datadog, New Relic, trying to understand the behavior of your users for your release when it goes out. Things like PagerDuty and OpsGenie for kind of managing the rotation if you have that in place. So yeah, it's just like the basic frameworks are a lot, and you could end up with this. The thing that we like to talk about is the like problem of a million tabs open, where you're trying to run a release and you have 10 different tabs and you need to go into each one and know what to do in different cases and like what to look for. And it can become pretty harrowing pretty quickly.